name is Martin. Before we actually start presenting, I kind of want to ask the room, could you please raise your hands if you are writing XPath, XQuery inside of XSLT, XProc, X whatever, X anything? I see almost all hands, really cool. Who of you has ever been in a situation where a new project member joins? They make a brilliant PR to your project, but you're like, yeah, I like it. But you use tabs here, spaces there, and I would personally move this one to a new line, and you're just bike shedding over code formatting. And at some point, maybe even the whole PR fails, because that formatting still needs to happen. Could anyone raise their hands to see if it actually happened?
Why does anyone type after column 79?
That.
Then hit column 79?
Exactly, column 79, and then just... That's how it's supposed to be. Brief history of me. I now see why everyone is choosing a white team, not a dark team. I am with Exist Solutions and Yintech, doing consultancy work for them and doing a bit of font consultancy on the side. For some reason, I found myself in a niche configuring Fonto for XBRL fintech documents, which is apparently a niche, and I'm happy to be in it. So that is kind of me. I started writing JavaScript professionally around 2012. That is when people actually started paying me to do it. Back then, we used, it was a company Fonto XML. And back then, we were using AngularJS, just to kind of like set a picture. We supported Internet Explorer 8. And if we wanted to do some kind of debugging, this is how we did it. We would write console log here and to see if the code actually reached this kind of line. And if it didn't, something else was going on. If we were writing code, we would have to memorize the specification and memorize the APIs to make sure that we would know where to type and which to type and what to type. So document the query, selected a div, and then, how did you spell append child again? This. You would load this, you would load it in the browser, you would get something like, undefined is not a function, what are you doing, this is wrong. So that was not really my fun. Plus, we would copy-paste code every so often, and we would end up with code like this, big files. We would manually have to format that, and that was just no fun. But it improved. At some point, we got type checking with TypeScript. I wrote 2013 here. I think that is kind of like when I started using it. So you would actually get some feedbacks that says, you're writing something wrong. What are you doing? 2016, we got autocomplete with language server protocol. And I'm really impressed that Wim actually already supports language server protocol for the new language. So you would get something like this. You would get your append. You would know what's happening. And in 2017 and 2018, I saw that Chrome and Firefox were implementing step-through debugging. So like all the special features, and life was... and at 2017, we got automated formatting with prettier, so my ugly code would just be pretty every time I would save it. So it was starting to get good. I was finally able to write productive JavaScript code and focus on the problems and not focusing on everything else, and the computer was trying to help me. So at Fonto, we started introducing a lot of XQuery-based APIs between 2017, and it kind of like stopped exploding in 2020. We would use XQuery and XPath for determining which elements would have which roles. We would use XQuery update facility to make mutations in documents. So I started to write more and more XQuery and doing other things. So in 2024, I even left Fonto and I joined Exist Solutions, became a good colleague of Yuri, which was always my dream. So nowadays, what I'm doing is a bit of XSTB consultancy, writing a lot of XQuery, sometimes writing a bit of XSLT, and doing a bit of Fonto stuff on the side still. Yeah. And to be honest, it felt like going back in time a bit. I did not have my syntax highlighting in the same way. At some point, I did actually get it to work. But I did not get my linting. I did not get my static type checking. I didn't know I would need to run code and then see, hey, index of doesn't exist like this with that arity. It is actually index, not itnex. So my fat fingers would screw me over. And to do debugging, I would need to use the trace function or util-info or util-log and those kind of things. So it felt like going back like when I was doing JavaScript. Furthermore, when I would do something like these kind of files, yeah, good luck trying to read it. I miss my JavaScript. So when a problem is at hand, the best way to solve it is just by taking the smallest, simplest step and trying to solve that. So what I chose is I tried to port something that I really liked in my JavaScript workflow, which was prettier. And I tried to port that to the XQuery world. Is it actually? Yeah, here. It is not shown on my speaker notes, but it is shown here. And this for me was the, how we say it in Dutch, the drip that overflew the bucket. I was asked to do something with this file. It is 1200 lines long, and the maximum column width is 470 characters. At some point here, you see these double new lines. That's not double new lines, that's the white space overlapping and wrapping over, and then actually starting to do something. For me, this was too much. I could not maintain this anymore. This was no fun. This was just nested if-elses and too difficult. So yeah, I miss my JavaScript. Introducing prettier-plugin-xquery. And now I need to do some magic because I have this piece of code here. Yeah. Click. And it is formatted. So this kind of bit more complicated stuff. Either way. Okay. Oh, this one was already formatted. Should not be formatted. Do a refresh. Yeah, here we go. And I do a click. And it is formatted. So your next question would likely be, how about dialects? As some of you might know, that XQuery is just a language, but there's a bunch of things that are built on top of XQuery. You have your XQuery update facility that starts to mutate nodes. XistDB has a really cool different kind of update facility. That's not really update facility, using different keywords, using different syntax constructions. I know that XQuery full text exists. That adds even more keywords. I know that BaseX has their own little flavor of if-else conditions. That is not necessarily compatible with the if-else conditions that we saw yesterday with Yuri, but it is similar. Basically, what they allow is a if, where the condition is there, the then case is there, but there's no else case, and the then case does not need those curly braces around the then case. So like really small things. If anyone has worked with Marklogic, they might know that they have their own whole spin-off using different try-catches and to name a few. If anyone knows of even more different dialects, please just come talk to me. So by default, how my system is set up, I'm doing a parse first, so that all those special dialects will just be refused. That's a syntax error. So what I did, and this is by the way sponsored currently by the Exist solutions. This is an example of XistDB's update node syntax. So in here we have a update insert b into node/a. I do a format, and it is formatted. It is placed on the same place. You might think, but I'm not doing any XQuery anyway. How about XSLT? Prettier has the function to embed languages into each other. So what you can do is say, I have my normal XML formatter, and at some point I can override, say, now when I'm reaching this, it is not actually just a string that I want to output, but I want to do my own formatting over it. So for example here, I have a value of with a select. I kind of wanted to make an example using the new XSL select element, but I failed to do so. I click on it and it is being formatted. You might ask, a slow tool is not a tool that I'm going to use. How fast is this? I threw it through a few different files on my trusty laptop here. I took a small file, I took a normal-ish size one, I took like a big one or a really huge one. To be honest, if you're writing files that are 2,663 lines, it might be time to start splitting up things because it's just big. But even those are like 600 milliseconds to do a full format on it. I did notice with Prettier that the first format is larger and slower than a subsequent format. I'm not really sure what it is because a parse should be a parse. But anyway, I'm seeing that. So yeah, XQuery 4, of course, is announced yesterday really brilliantly with all kinds of new syntax constructs. So hopefully done, I understood, next year-ish, maybe end of the year. But yeah, we have some different syntax constructs in here. I am using my two favorites. I'm using otherwise here, and I'm using a combination here. I think a combination axis. Union node types, yeah, union node types, exactly. I'm formatting. It only has 3 buttons, but yeah, keep pressing over. So XQuery 4 is being formatted. You just saw it. Yeah, this is cool, but how did I do it? This whole formatting is a plugin for Prettier. Prettier is a quite old stable tool that mainly formats JavaScript, but in recent years it also started branching out to other languages. So far it has a configuration for Python, YAML, I think, JSON, I believe, XML, etc. It is based on Gunther Rademacher's Rex parser generator, which is a project that is way older than I am. It is from '79, I believe. It is a parser generator that is accepts a kind of EBNF and transforms that into a parser in your specified language. So either JavaScript, C, Java, TypeScript even, etc. Those dialects, I am trying to amend a basic EBNF with additional things. So, for example, I see XQuery update facility as XQuery, whatever version, plus these additional parts. You might know that XQuery update facility, for example, doesn't have a configuration. So it doesn't have a version for 3.1, only for 3.0. So there are some gaps in it that say, where you read this, actually do this, etc. And I am verifying my correctness using the Qt3, Qt4 test set plus some additional tests. What I'm doing is I'm using the formatter to format any test case in the Qt3 and the Qt4 test set, formatting it again, asserting that those two are actually exactly the same to make sure that my formatter is stable, because no one likes an unstable formatter. So whenever you format something and you format it again, it just grows and deviates. And I'm also using that to make sure that I do not have any crashes, any weird things anywhere. So my first library that I'm using is Prettier, of course. It makes code pretty. It does work in about any IDE that I'm aware of. I'm aware of plugins for at least Emacs, Vim, Z, IDE, VS Code, whatever. How it basically works is it parses code and removes all white space. And then it starts to insert white space again. So I think it kind of rhymes with the presentation that we had from Stephen Pemberton and the presentation that we had from Alain, where they are printing an AST or where they are printing something into something again, where the ambiguities are just solved by taking the shortest path. The plugin that the Prettier project has an opinion on it and starts to insert the correct white space at the correct spaces according to the opinion of the developer at hand. Basically, what it does, parses the code, builds a tree, adding a point where it can think it can break stuff, and then just outputs it where it's needed. This presentation is a bit too short to really go into the full specifics of it. So let's just take a really simple example. I have a string here, followed by a concat operator, followed by a string there. And I'm saying that my concat expression is basically a group that joins the left-hand side of my concat expression, then a space, because there needs to be a space, otherwise it's unreadable, then my double pipe, and then a break that indents and says, this is my right-hand side. And the trick there kind of is that that break is an optional break. Prettier builds this tree and then starts to output it, and every time it sees a group that spans over the 80 character limit, or whatever character limit you're using, then transforms all the breaks into new lines, actually starts applying indents, and formats it that way. So in this example, I'm having the string there, I'm outputting a space over there, and the other place I'm annotating saying, if it's a break, then I want a new line and indent, and otherwise just a space. And that turns it into this. Look at the intent, and look at that it basically overlaps the whole line. Dialects. How am I on time? 5 minutes left, including questions. The dialects, what I'm doing there is I'm taking the XQuery4 grammar, I'm parsing it using a parser generated by Rex parser, and I'm amending things. I'm adding a new rule to expression single, for example, adding a definition of that, and then serialize the whole thing to string again, and then building a parser for that, using that new amended grammar for JavaScript, and then I figure out how I actually want to format those items. So for example here, this is a declarative way to just say, I add expression single, I want to add this stuff, which are these new permutations that I want to add. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because the XQuery4 standard is still kind of in flux. And I would really like to not do the same work of amending a grammar over and over and over again. I just want to one time define my transformations. So if exist, syntax, basics, XQuery update facility, etc. And just do it like that. That results kind of in these situations where I have the old content, here, the flower expression, quantified expression, etc. And I'm adding these new rules. You just amend things. So where are we using this thing? XQuery v1 is fully supported. Made it available on our website, xquery.eliot with 2ls.nl. XQuery 4.0 I'm working on. It is parts of it are really nice and stable, but because I'm trying to use the same formatter for XQuery 3.1 and XQuery 4.0, I need to implement where there are some deviations in the syntax. So for example, in let bindings, a few new syntax nodes are being added, a few new AST nodes are being added. So I need to choose in XQuery 3.1 do this, in XQuery 4.0 do that, etc. Update node syntax the same. I'm still working on it. Other dialects I have not even started on. So if someone sees it, is like, oh, this would be amazing for my own little special use case where I'm in Marklogic and I need to format my stuff, please do reach out to me. I'm looking for sponsors to get that part of development done. Embedded XQuery and XSLT, the same. Still kind of working some parts, but I would really like a bit of sponsoring, a bit of help, either in money or in time to help me out with those parts. So that's a big, huge file. Yeah, it is loaded over there. It is still huge. This does not do the magic of splitting up your code and making it better, but at least it's a bit easier to read. I mean, if you remember the previous one, at least this one does not go over there and then there and then again. This file, by the way, took 250 milliseconds to render, to format, which is not that bad. I would say it's always a good moment at some point during the whole project to ask yourself, why am I even doing this? And I'm really hoping that this will be useful for anyone with non-trivial or even trivial XQuery code bases where just some formatting needs to be applied. For me personally, it's already being used in a few projects. and it has helped maintenance, at least for me, on really complex files, because I can finally read it. This stuff is available on npm. It is on prettier-plugin-xquery. So if you just do npm i-d prettier-plugin-xquery, stuff should work or not. Just check the README. There's a demo available on xquery.elliot.nl, which is totally offline. Whatever code you put in there is not being sent back to the server. Scout's promise. Yep. So, are there any questions? How are people liking this? Because I know that formatting code is something that can be a tiny bit tricky and people will have opinions on it. I see Ken Holman. Microphone. Oh, yep.
It's not on. Testing 1, 2. Oh,
Good.
you can hear me now. Formatting I write in XSLT, not in XQuery, but formatting the XPath expressions in my style sheets is really important to me, and I have some colleagues where it isn't that important. And you just asked, what's the scope of this tool? And I see it as a kind of a one-off, because once it's the way I want, as long as I'm maintaining it, I'm going to be putting the effort in to keep it up myself. I think this is a wonderful tool, as you said, for cleanup if I'm now going to maintain it. But you wouldn't use this twice in a row on the same file because you've already fixed it up.
Well, if you're starting to edit it, for example, you start to do some bit of refactoring that touches multiple lines. In my experience as a JavaScript dev, people have this on save. So whenever you're trying to write, my enter key, you might check it out on my keyboard in a bit, is clean. I almost never use my enter and my tab key because I just write my code and at some point I save, it's formatted and it's formatted exactly how I want it. So I'm just continuously formatting. So my code is always nice and clean.
No, I can see that now, but if I'm embedding comments in my XPath expressions in order to explain myself for a future maintainer, I might get quite elaborate. I'm just worried about having something else do reformatting for me, because it might not be just like what I want. I'm not criticizing what you've done. You asked for feedback. I would be wary that it wouldn't be quite my style.
That is a totally valid opinion to have. Pretty itself is extremely opinionated. It by default says I'm using 2 spaces. And it does allow you to override that and say, I want to use tabs like a sensible person. You can also, by default, it's single quotes. You can override and say that's double quote. And that's kind of how far it goes.
I'm a 2-space guy myself.
Love it. I think it's really interesting is the effect that using a formatter like Prettier, if you're working in a team, is that it means that people aren't angry at you for reformatting stuff. They're angry at Prettier.
Yep.
You can all be equally angry at Prettier and then get on with your day
and
work more effectively.
Exactly.
So yes, more formatting for Xcode, please.
I have a question myself. I saw a lot of strange coloring, but this is just about formatting, or is it also coloring?
Just formatting.
Yeah.
Pretty is just formatting.
Because I think it would be much prettier if you would also do proper coloring, don't you? Or do you not care about coloring?
I do care about coloring, of course. You should care about coloring. But coloring is in the end not what is going to go into your GitHub repository.
Sure.
Formatting is for me the most important part. And maybe also to add on the comments just now, I have worked in organizations where we had a really strict style guideline where it said whenever you do something like this, you need to have a new line there. You need to use your semicolons there. You need to use double quotes or single quotes. But because that was just a Word document, no one actually did it except for maybe the lead who made it at some point, and extremely loyal person who just tries to get on the good side of the lead. But anyone else will not just read a document. This whole tool, the whole point is that it will constantly apply stuff and make sure that's always there and do it programmatically.
Anyone else? Mohammed.
Thank you. Very nice. And well, Prettier is generating a tree behind the scene with this optional break, right? More sort of. How do you connect that with IXML?
That's a really good one. I am using the Rex parser generator to do the parser there. I thought about using IXML actually as the parser, but at that point it was for me also just a coin toss. I did see Rex parser a few times already in my life. It is actually the parser that I wanted to use for Frontal XPath back in the day. But back then the licensing construction was a bit weird. I think it was still closed source at the time. It's actually really recently that it has become open source. Back then the only place where I could reach it was bottlecaps.de/rex, which it's actually still where it is.
I'm just trying your tool, Elliot, and it just returns 10 lines. Do you have to pay in order to use it?
Why is this not working? Why is this offline?
Well, it's not offline, but
No, I'm offline. It looks like.
okay. But yeah, it looks very pretty and with proper coloring. So yes, Yuri, you have a question.
More of a comment, success story. So I used this already to format a crossbow, and it allowed me to go from spaces to tabs in just one run. And this was really nice. Then you have those reformatting commits. It's just one commit, and then after that you have it's clean and it stays clean. And also this is one learning is also that then the diffs will look much better because you don't have whites. You don't have to ignore white space changes in your commits.
Okay, thank you, Martin Middel.
Thank you.